So this morning you spoke about the three aspects of the Absolute, and you said that Satyam and Shivam are abstract because they can't be perceived, they can only be experienced. And that Sundaram can be perceived. And I had an experience, i.e. that it can be, I take that to mean that it can be experienced through the act of perception. And I had an experience early on when I was just starting as your student that I spoke to you about at the time. It was in Sedona, and I was sitting, and I noticed that I had the experience of thinking that something was beautiful, but then I realized that there wasn't anything that was beautiful. Like it was like the experience of beauty, but there was no object, and I kept looking for, like, what do I think is beautiful? And there wasn't anything there. And then I realized very palpably that it was just, I was experiencing beauty itself, not a beautiful thing. And I'm just wondering if that, if Sundaram if that is also the experience of beauty without perception, or if that is the experience of some very subtle object that wasn't clear in that experience.
Yes, that was your state. You were clearly perceiving your state. So it's just a subtle experience that doesn't have to be a flower. When we spoke about various types of beauty and various realms of how it can be experienced, we also spoke about not just physical experience of beauty, but it can be a beautiful feeling, a beautiful thought. And what you experience is a beautiful state, palpably, but it still belongs to perception. You see? And in a way, that what you have experienced is a very, very, it's a prerequisite for artistic insight. Any creative insight, this is a prerequisite. I remember when again, as an art student, you have to be able to find beauty in anything. Not just in what is universally agreed to be beautiful. Right? To a sensitive eye, a bare surface, the way the light hits it, can be a sense of tremendous delight. A skull can be just as beautiful as a rose. And the list just goes on and on. But there can be experience also simply of a situation. You see? That when nothing can be really, really registered, it's not quite for the eye or the ear to grab onto. But just that fleeting moment give that sense. Why? Because the doors of your perceptions were cleared in that moment. Like William Blake said, when the doors of our perception shall be cleaned, the world will appear to us as it is, perfect. Perfect and beautiful here could be synonymous. And that quality of perception, of course, is ability to extract, or as Maharishi Mahesh Yogi used to say, it's ability to evaluate what is there in the environment. And it is not to what the environment has to offer, but to how much we can evaluate from that experience of that environment. You see? So this is a reminder, of course, of again how often we run on autopilot, commonness, and how beauty bypasses us, either because our attention is not refined enough. But what does it mean is that the perceptual capacity is not refined enough. And you remember that we spoke many times that refinement of perception is an indispensable part and parcel of the maturity of God consciousness. This is how Maharishi Mahesh Yogi defined that transition from cosmic consciousness, which is the witnessing state, to unity, and that God consciousness. And what God consciousness is characterized is by ability to evaluate and extract that essence, which here could be spoken of as beauty. And when we fail to evaluate, we failed that on the account of our perceptions are not being clear enough. In other words, not refined enough. But when there is a refinement, then we are capable of extracting that beauty wherever we go, because the beauty comes with us. We go there as that. So, it's a prerequisite of creative insight. Of course, a stupendous view when we walked and suddenly came through the clearing and there's a dune and we have this breathtaking view of an ocean and the setting sun. No one would argue. But a walk along a canal and a brick wall with graffiti and a green water, far from being fresh, can also transport us because we're able to evaluate something in that which almost not worthy of aesthetic attention. And that's what artists are good at. They extract beauty in the least expected places. Extract beauty from the least expected places. Because there's already a predisposition to see beauty. You know that as a student of art, and I speak that because to assist this discourse, to make this discourse really kind of down to earth also. There was no such thing as, like in art classes, in art academies, in art schools, you paint from life. At some point you graduate from painting from still life, right? And then you have a model. You'll have a model. An old man, a young woman, a middle-aged woman, doesn't matter. Whoever is going to be the model. Academy has models. There are books, and there are being the list of models, and they're being booked from class to class. So in the end, we all end up painting and drawing them. All students know the models. None of these models are beautiful. In a sense of this is not a modeling agency. But you come into the class and the model sitting in a chair, and we are about to draw or paint his or her hands or his or her face. It could be a man of 72, and that's the job he does. And he's wearing a checkered, dirty shirt. His face is maybe cleanly shaven, and he has a little bit of white hair still left, mostly bald. And his face is full of wrinkles, and he's sitting against a grey wall with a lot of marks, as in art academies. But when you stand there and you will paint it in a moment, and you begin to observe. And what was a moment ago the most mundane of encounters begins to be transformed the closer you begin to look. And the closer you begin to look, the more you become engaged. And the more you become engaged, the more you become intimate with what you're looking at. And the more you become intimate with what you're looking at, the more you become to love it. And the beauty opens up itself, and then I know how I can see now. That slightly reddish face against that grey wall, that touch of white here. Oh, actually quite interesting, that asymmetry in the face. Wow, I haven't noticed first that shirt is very beautifully complements, that part of the whole thing is now starts to arrange itself. And in no time, you're already in a transformed universe. You're already no longer in a mundane state of consciousness, because your attention is much more refined. You didn't just come, are we going to paint this ugly sod? I thought this is an art academy. I want beautiful girls and boys. No, it doesn't work like that. Models usually people who are thrown on the fringes of life. That's how I remember it. So there is no such thing as beauty. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. One who is in a state when one cannot help but perceive in a creative way, there is no ugly. And ugly is another side of beauty. This is why I disagree even with some of the perspectives that, yes, there are degrees in beauty. But essentially there is also degrees in the capacity of perception. This is more like it. So it's how much we are capable of evaluating in the experience itself. But more to what you brought up to clarify. Yes, there can be experience, and that is as a state. There was something. There was nothing to write home about. But in the state you were in, everything appeared more magical, more sharp, more clear. And this is, again, I want to now share with you, when I went through the breakthrough and I would come out of this very intense meditative sessions. I remember I was in Uzbekistan and I was staying where I grew up. And I grew up in a Soviet ghetto of Tashkent city, in Old Town. I only realized that when I traveled back there, after I lived abroad for many years. And I lived in London, in the most beautiful part of London. I lived in St. John's Wood, in Little Venice, and what have you. And suddenly I traveled back there, and it's like I happened to go, and it's night in a part, and literally I was walking along the heap of rubbish. There was a because it's like there's no longer rubbish. There was just like a heap of rubbish there, this kind of grey buildings, and and there was this wet asphalt, and the air was cold November, and there was this moisture in the air, and there's freshness, and everything was magical. Absolutely everything was magical, and lit with light at night. Everything that had extra luminosity, everything that even the shimmering quality of the air felt lit somehow within. You see? There was nothing attractive that I could say, oh, no. But the state, the opposite of that, of what you speak and what you want to bring to clarity. We know all, when we are out of balance and cannot pay attention, because we cannot pay attention to anything when we're out of balance. By the way, this is very important. It's good that you brought it up. We can't experience beauty when we're out of balance. Isn't that amazing? We can be in the most amazing setting. We can be in the most amazing situation. We can be on a white yacht, right? Cruising, the whatever, Caribbean or whatever is you take your fancy, like Bali, right? Docking and dining and whining and what have you. But if we are out of whack with ourselves, if we're out of balance, all this beauty is just a superficial affair that only annoys us. It's only irritating. Nothing can be experienced and enjoyed. So this is another reminder, the opposite of that. And of course, the philosopher is born precisely in these moments. The inner philosopher, the inner wizard. That wisdom comes of what is what, and what this precious moment of existence is, what it is here for. It is for these moments of direct perception of what this magic of being alive is all about. And we can chase the rainbow, and we can chase the carrot or the rabbit or whoever else we can chase there, and it will go unnoticed. Because if this is at the expense of losing the capacity to experience, then it all goes to waste. And some of us, and myself including in this, you hang out with people who have seen it all, who have it all, but there is the same sense of parchment on the lips. There's the same sense of dissatisfaction. Doesn't matter. 5, 6 houses around the world. It's like, you have your life, you have a team of people working for you, on a payroll. You're a little boss of your own little universe, a big guy. But there's no happiness. There's no spark. Again, why that is? So it's not in what we actually have. It's the ability to evaluate. Then it doesn't matter. Of course, we're better off to be able to live a comfortable life. It goes without saying. But if we do not have the ability to refine the sense perception, if we do not have the ability to refine and bring to that natural state of balance, the ability to perceive things as they are, then we somehow misplaced our goals in life. And this is a classical reminder. Never out of fashion.